Yoon-woo counted 6 omegas around his husband. 7, if you counted the one at the bar who kept glancing back. All of them, in cream suits and champagne silks, perfumed to hit exactly right, calibrated for Su Jun. And Su Jun, across the room, was looking at Yoon-woo. Across the ballroom, through the circle of omegas, every time Yoon-woo glanced up, his husband's eyes were already on him. The look was steady and unhurried, held on purpose. An omega in cream put a hand on Su Jun's forearm to steady herself, and Su Jun stepped back without breaking the look. A second omega leaned in. His eyes did not move. Every person in that ballroom could see who he was choosing. Again, in public. Yoon-woo should have been proud. Instead, he stood at the pillar with a cold water glass in his hand and felt a hand on his elbow. "You came." Mrs. G, his mother-in-law. Dark green dress, kind smile, faint controlled scent. She had approached him without his seeing, which was one of her talents. "You've given him so many beautiful years," she said, her voice even, her smile unchanged. "Nobody will forget what you've done, but look at how his body stands in that circle. Can you honestly tell me you're not keeping him from something his biology was built for?" She had said a version of this to him at Christmas dinners, at weddings, on the phone at the end of a Sunday call. A decade of versions. He had always had an answer ready, or learned not to need one. Tonight, the answer would not come. Yoon-woo looked across the ballroom one more time. At his husband, whose eyes had not left him. At the omegas in cream and silk who could give him the thing Yoon-woo could not. He set his water glass down on the shelf of the pillar. He did not answer her. He did not look at her. He walked past her, past the coat check without stopping for his coat, and out through the side door of the Arctic Club into the November rain. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Now, back to today's story. The Arctic Club's dome room had been full of people whose families had known his family for generations. G Maritime had just closed the biggest contract in the company's history, and Su Jun had been the one to negotiate it. His mother had thrown the gala to celebrate. Yoon-woo had been standing by the pillar nearest the door since the opening toasts. His water glass had been refilled twice by a server who did not recognize him, which was usual. At G family events, Yoon-woo was often taken for a coat check attendant or a cousin of a cousin. He did not correct it anymore. Su Jun's tie was the dark gray one Yoon-woo had picked out for him years ago now. That, and how Su Jun had kept finding his eyes across the room all evening, were the two things that had been holding Yoon-woo together until his mother-in-law walked over. The first time she had said a version of it was at a Christmas dinner, a few months into the marriage, while she passed him the serving spoon for the rice. Biology is not a personal failing, dear. He had been young. He had not known, yet, how to answer. He had only learned not to need to. Tonight she had timed it. Su Jun's cousin had come through the side entrance earlier, carrying her daughter. The same daughter Su Jun had held for a long stretch in the spring. Older now, pulling at the silver clasp of her mother's bag. The cousin had walked her from group to group, and when she had reached Su Jun had paused. It had been brief, and no one else in the room had seen it. But Yoon-woo knew every version of his husband's face, and he had caught the one that had passed over it, a hunger Su Jun had buried long ago and would not let himself look at directly. Su Jun had said something kind to the cousin, touched the girl's hand with one finger, and gone back to his circle without looking at her again. The names Yoon-woo had not heard in a long time came back to him all at once. Su Jun had named 2 children out loud when they were 19, a boy and a girl. In bed, in the dark, in the apartment they had rented the summer after the wedding. He had wanted a big family. Yoon-woo had been 19 too, and in love, and had told himself they would figure it out. Su Jun had kept talking about the children for years. Then, at some point Yoon-woo could not pinpoint, Su Jun had stopped. Not a decision, something slower than that. A week of no mention, and then a month, and then a year. He had not said the names in a very long time. And tonight, for the first time, standing by the pillar with his mother-in-law waiting for an answer, Woo had thought about the child his husband had never asked him for, and no answer had come. Now he was walking down Cherry Street in the rain, with no coat. He did not take a cab. He walked to the transit tunnel and took the light rail home. His suit was soaked by the time he reached the Capitol Hill station. The apartment was dark when he got in. He did not turn on the lights. They had met in high school. Chemistry class. Sophomore year. Woo had been assigned the seat behind Su Jun because their last names were adjacent in the alphabet, and Su Jun had spent the first week of class asking to borrow a pencil every other day because he always forgot his. Woo had a box of them in his backpack. He brought extras because his mother had raised him to be prepared for other people's forgetfulness. By the second week, he had stopped waiting for Su Jun to ask. He just handed one over the shoulder when Su Jun sat down. "You're going to spoil me," Su Jun had said. On the Tuesday, Woo started leaving the pencils on the corner of the desk before class began. "You're already spoiled. I'm just adjusting to the conditions." Su Jun had turned around in his seat and looked at him for the first time. And Woo, who had spent his whole sophomore year being invisible, had understood that he had just become visible to someone who was not going to look away. Su Jun had been the star, not in the obvious ways. He did not play sports. He did not run for student council. He was simply the son of the G family. And in the Seattle Asian community, that meant his face appeared in the newsletters of several foundations, and his test scores were discussed by strangers. He was an alpha who had presented early. He had arrived at Bellevue with the quiet that alphas either developed at that age or never did. He had developed it. He never shouted. He never claimed seats. He refused any of the things alphas were allowed to do in high school hallways. But rooms paid attention to him when he walked in, and he had learned to ignore it with a precision that looked, to Woo, like grace. Woo, meanwhile, had presented beta, and nobody in his life had seemed particularly surprised. His parents had not been surprised. They were a beta father and an omega mother, and they had raised him to believe that designation was not a ranking system. They lived in a small house in West Seattle with a garden his father had been perfecting since before Woo was born. When the word came back beta, his mother had made his favorite soup, and his father had said, at dinner, "Now you can stop worrying about it." And that had been the end of the conversation. And then Su Jun had turned around in his seat and looked at him, and nothing had gone the way Woo had been trained to expect. Su Jun asked him to study together. Woo said yes, because he could not think of a reason to say no. They met at the library on a Thursday. Woo's take stays and he welled wise. Su Jun brought a thermos of tea, which he poured into 2 paper cups without asking whether Woo wanted any. And Woo drank it because he had not yet learned that he was allowed to decline things from alphas. By the end of that first study session, Su Jun had asked him out to dinner. Woo had stared at him for a long second. Then he had said, quietly, "I'm a beta." "I know. I'm saying it in case you didn't know. I knew. I've known since the first week. I could smell you when you walked past my locker. Faint, clean, like cotton that had been dried outside. I wasn't confused." Woo had not known what to do with any of that. He had gone to dinner. They had been together since they were 17, married at 18, the summer after graduation, at a small ceremony in Woo's parents' backyard, because Su Jun's mother had declined to host. She had attended. She had given a toast that referenced the word devotion pointedly enough that everyone in the backyard had understood what she meant. She had sent a check the following week for an amount that Woo's father had quietly returned. For years, Woo had told himself this was fine. He had a husband who loved him. He had parents who loved him. He had a job he was good at. He had a quiet apartment on Capitol Hill with a window that caught the afternoon light. He had a marriage that had survived what a lot of alpha-beta marriages did not. The little comments he had absorbed without letting them land. A dinner party where an aunt had asked, gently, whether Su Jun had considered a second bonded partner for biological completeness. A cousin's wedding where Woo had been seated at the table furthest from the family. A Christmas morning when Myung-suk had given Su Jun a box of rut suppressants as a gift, wrapped in silver paper, with a note that said, For the hard nights. I know you manage them alone. Yunwoo had been in the kitchen getting coffee when Su Jun opened it. He had heard the sound of paper. He had not come out for a while. He had told himself each time that it did not matter. His husband had chosen him. What he and Su Jun had built was a life, and the life was good. And small comments were just small comments. There was also this. Su Jun did not complain. About anything. Not about the cousin who asked him, every Thanksgiving, when the family would finally hear some good news. Not about the rut suppressants in silver paper. Not about the table assignments. Whatever hurt him, he folded up and put away. And Yunwoo only ever saw the folding, if he was paying close attention, which he usually was. Su Jun came home from family events and poured himself a glass of water and stood at the kitchen window for a while, and then asked Yunwoo what he wanted for dinner. That was how he carried it. Yunwoo had understood, somewhere along the way, that if his husband did not complain, he was not allowed to either. His husband was the one who should have been complaining. Su Jun was the one with the mother, the aunts, the cousins, the check-returned wedding. Su Jun was the one who had paid the real price for marrying a beta. If Su Jun could swallow it, then Yunwoo, whose only job was to love him, had no standing to be tired. So Yunwoo had swallowed his own, year after year, and every small comment he absorbed had pressed down on the one underneath, until he could no longer remember which one had started the stack. Tonight something had cracked. He had heard it at the Arctic Club, while a string trio played something light, and an omega he did not know touched his husband's forearm, and his mother-in-law said a sentence she had said in variations for as long as Yunwoo had been in the family. And now he was standing in the kitchen, in the dark, in his wet suit jacket, listening to the rain on the window, and then he took off the jacket and hung it on the back of a chair, and then he put on the kettle, because the only thing his body knew how to do at a moment like this was make tea. Su Jun came home later that night. Yunwoo had changed by then. He was in a sweatshirt that belonged to Su Jun, the dark gray one with the worn elbows, and he was sitting on the couch with a mug of tea going cold in his hands. The lamp on the side table was on. The rest of the apartment was dark. He heard the key. He heard the door. He heard Su Jun set his keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, which Su Jun had done every night they had lived in this apartment. And then he heard Su Jun walk into the living room. Yunwoo. I'm here. Su Jun stopped in the doorway. Yunwoo could feel him looking. He had learned to read the weight of his husband's attention by now. Are you all right? I got sick at the gala. I didn't want to embarrass you. You left without telling me. I sent you a text. You sent me a text a long time after you left. From the train. Yunwoo did not look up. He kept his eyes on the mug in his hands. I'm sorry. I should have told you in person. Su Jun was quiet for a long beat. Then he crossed the room and sat on the couch beside Yunwoo, close enough that their shoulders touched. He did not take the mug away. He did not reach for Yunwoo's hand. He just sat there, in his dark suit, still smelling faintly of the gala, of other people's perfume and the cigarette smoke that had clung to his jacket from someone's balcony. And under all of that, the familiar quiet of him, black pepper, wet stone, the warm note underneath that Yunwoo had always thought of, privately, as burnt honey. What happened? I told you. Yunwoo. I felt sick. I'm sorry. I should have handled it better. Su Jun did not press. That was what Yunwoo had not expected. Su Jun always pressed. Tonight Su Jun sat beside him and chose not to. And Yunwoo, sitting there with his tea, knew what it meant. The not pressing was the worst thing Su Jun could have done. It meant Su Jun had already seen through him. Do you need anything? No. I'm going to take a shower. Okay. Su Jun sat for another moment. Then he stood. He did not touch Yunwoo on his way past. He went down the hallway. The bathroom door closed. Yunwoo heard the shower turn on. He stared at the tea in his hands. He had just lied to his husband. He had never done that before. Su Jun had known. Su Jun had let him. He did not sleep that night. He lay next to Su Jun in the dark and listened to his husband's breathing and thought, with the flat arithmetic he only ever had before dawn, about a question he had been refusing to ask himself for years. Not whether Su Jun loved him. He knew Su Jun loved him. Whether love was enough. The days after the gala went by quietly. Yun-woo did not say anything. He did not change his routine. He got up before 7, as he always had. He made coffee for Su Jun and tea for himself, as he always had. He walked to the bus stop in his rain jacket, as he always had. He worked his hours at Southside Housing Trust, where he had been the bookkeeper for years and where the executive director considered him an essential piece of the organization's infrastructure because Yun-woo had never once made a ledger error she had to catch. He did all of it as he always had. And underneath, he was disappearing. Not in any way a casual observer would catch. Just in small ways he hoped Su Jun would not notice, and that he knew, on some level beneath the hope, Su Jun would notice immediately. He stopped setting 2 places at the kitchen island for breakfast. He had set 2 places for as long as they had lived in this apartment. A few mornings after the gala, he set 1. Su Jun came into the kitchen and looked at the single place setting and did not say anything. He got down a plate for himself. They ate standing up, at opposite counters. He started working late. Not for a reason. He would finish the audit prep early in the evening and then stay at his desk, pretending to reconcile a grant he had already reconciled. He came home after dark, and Su Jun had already eaten. Su Jun did not comment. He stopped reaching for Su Jun in the middle of the night. Their bed had always been a small geography. Su Jun slept on the left. Yun-woo slept on the right. For as long as they had been married, Yun-woo had always, without noticing, migrated toward the center in the hours before dawn. Some nights he woke with his hand on Su Jun's wrist, or his forehead against Su Jun's shoulder blade, or his foot hooked over Su Jun's ankle. It had never been a decision. It was what his body did, until his body stopped doing it. He noticed, the first morning, that he had woken up on his own side. Su Jun was on his own side too, turned away. Yun-woo lay in the pre-dawn dark and stared at the ceiling and understood that his body had been listening to his head more closely than he had realized. Su Jun noticed all of it. Yun-woo could tell because Su Jun had started moving around him carefully. The careful was new. It meant Su Jun was handling something he could not name. Su Jun asked one Sunday morning. Yun-woo was at the kitchen island. He had been making breakfast for himself since the gala, which felt, to him, like a small kind of murder he was committing on his own marriage. Su Jun came in, still in his pajama pants, hair wet from the shower, and sat down at the island across from him. "What's going on?" "Nothing's going on. You haven't touched me in a long time." Yun-woo did not look up. He cut his toast into quarters, which he did not usually do. "I've been tired." "You've been tired since the gala. The audit's coming up." "The audit's in March. I'm prepping for it early." Su Jun was quiet. Yun-woo could feel him choosing his words. "Yun-woo, look at me. I'm eating. Look at me." Yun-woo set his knife down. He looked at his husband across the kitchen island. Su Jun's face was careful. The careful that was worse than anger, because it meant Su Jun had already understood. "Did something happen at the gala?" "No." "Yun-woo, I told you. I felt sick. My mother said something to you." Yun-woo did not answer. He picked up his knife again. He cut the toast quarters into eighths, which he had never done in his life. "She always says something." "What did she say this time?" "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." "It doesn't matter, Su Jun." Su Jun put his hands flat on the island. Yun-woo watched his knuckles whiten. "I've been asking you since we got home. You're my husband. If my mother said something, I need to know what she said. I can't address it if I don't know what it is." "You can't address it." "What?" Yun-woo looked up. It came out of him before he had decided to say it. Flat. The voice he used when he read audit numbers aloud. "You can't address it, Su Jun. Because she's right." The kitchen went quiet around them. Su Jun's face did something Yun-woo had not seen on it before. It was, for a moment, completely undefended. Then the defense came back. "What did she say?" "She said what she always says." She said it more clearly. "What did she say?" She said, I'm keeping you from what your biology was built for. Woo. And she's right. I've been doing it all along. I chose not to see it because I didn't want to. I watched you at that gala with a room of omegas calibrated for you, and I finally saw what your life was supposed to look like. What it still could look like. Woo, stop. I watched how the air around you organized itself. I've never done that. I can't do that. Stop. I saw you hold your cousin's baby last spring, Su Jun. You held her for a long time. I watched the same cousin walk in with her tonight. Older now. And I watched your face for the second you forgot to put it away. You haven't mentioned your children's names in years. Do you think I didn't notice? Do you think I didn't notice when you stopped saying them? An omega could give you that. I can't. I can't claim you. I can't ease your ruts. I can't give you the children you named in bed when we were 19. I can't give you any of the things your mother has been waiting for me to admit I can't give you. And I've been pretending for years that what I can give you is enough, and tonight I understood that it isn't. You've just been too kind to say it. Stop. I'm going to stay at a hotel for a few days. Woo. I need to think. I need to stop pretending for long enough to know whether I'm pretending or not. Su Jun stood up. The stool scraped against the tile. His voice, when he spoke, was very quiet, which was, for Su Jun, the sound of anger. You decided this alone. Yes. You decided what I need. Without asking me. Without telling me. For how long? How long have you been deciding this alone? I don't know. I've been asking you. After every Christmas dinner. After every family event. Every time my mother opened her mouth. You told me every time that you were fine. I know. You lied. I thought I was telling the truth. That's not the same thing. I know, Su Jun. Woo's hands were on the granite. He looked at them. He made himself speak. You've never told me when something hurts you. In all the years, your mother gives you rut suppressants for Christmas and you pour a glass of water and ask me what I want for dinner. Your aunt asks if you're going to have good news soon, and you come home and read your book. I've watched you swallow things since we were young. Su Jun, everything she's ever said to me, she's said worse to you, and you've never once told me it landed. So, what was I supposed to do with mine? How was I supposed to come to you and say your mother hurt me tonight, when you don't come to me when your mother hurts you? I didn't have anywhere to put it. I put it on myself. I've been putting it on myself the whole time we've been married. Su Jun's jaw moved. He did not speak. I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because it's true. I didn't know how to tell you things hurt. I only knew how to be quieter than you. Su Jun stood at the island with his hands flat on the granite. His scent, which Woo could always smell faintly when Su Jun was close, had turned sharp. Black pepper. Wet stone. The warmth underneath was gone. You don't get to decide what I need for me. Woo. I'm not. I'm deciding what I need. You just told me what I could have had. You just listed the things you can't give me. That's deciding. Well, I will. Floaching. I said it because it's true. You said it because my mother has been saying it in your ear for a long time. And you finally agreed with her. Woo flinched. Su Jun saw it and stopped. Woo, I'm going to pack a bag. Woo. Please. Woo stood. His legs did not quite feel like his. He walked past the island, past his husband, down the hallway to the bedroom. He packed a small duffel, 2 changes of clothes, the charger for his phone, his laptop, the book he had been reading, which had been sitting on his nightstand untouched. He did not take the sweatshirt. He put it back in the drawer. When he came out of the bedroom, Su Jun was standing in the hallway. He had not moved. Where are you going? Somewhere you won't find me for a little while. That's not an answer. That's the answer I have. How long? I don't know. Su Jun looked at him for a moment. His face had turned careful again. The gallery face. The face he wore when he did not want a room to know what he was feeling. Woo. Yes. If you need to go, Go. But don't disappear. Text me once a day so I know you're alive. Okay. Promise me. I promise. He walked past his husband. He opened the door. He did not look back, because if he looked back, he was going to stay. And staying was exactly the problem. He closed the door behind him. He heard, on the other side, the sound of Su Jun sitting down on the hallway floor. He had never heard his husband do that in his life. He took the elevator to the lobby and walked out into the Seattle rain. And then he walked to the transit tunnel with a duffel over his shoulder and a weight in his chest that he did not yet have a word for. But he was a bookkeeper. Sooner or later, he would have a word for it. He just did not know. Yet, that naming it would not be the hardest part. The hotel was on Fremont Avenue, a few blocks from the canal. Young-woo had picked it because it was nowhere anyone in the G family would think to look. The G's did not go to Fremont. Fremont had statues of Lenin and a drawbridge that got stuck in the raised position more often than it should. And old money did not cross the canal for any reason. The room was small. The bed was made. There was a coffee maker on a narrow table and a window that looked across the street at a bookshop. Young-woo put his duffel on the chair by the window and sat on the edge of the bed and did not move for a long time. He sent Su Jun a text around noon that said, "I'm safe. I'm in Fremont. I'll text again tomorrow." He watched the 3 dots appear, then disappear, then appear again, then disappear. Su Jun did not write back. The first week of the separation, Yoon-woo did not do much. He went to work. He came back to the hotel. He did not eat dinner the first few nights because he did not know how to eat dinner without the kitchen island and the person who had sat across from him at it for years. One night he walked to a noodle shop down the block and ordered a bowl of soup and sat at the counter and ate it slowly. He paid cash. The woman behind the counter did not look at him twice. Nobody looked at anyone twice in a place like that. And Yoon-woo had not realized, until he sat at that counter, how long it had been since he had gone anywhere where nobody was watching to see if he belonged. Su Jun texted him a few days later. One sentence. "I'm not going to chase you, but I'm here when you want to come home." Yoon-woo read it standing at the window of the hotel room with his jacket still on. He read it twice. He did not write back. He set the phone face down on the table and went to bed early. The second week, he started walking. He walked in the mornings before work, down the Burke-Gilman Trail along the canal, cold and empty before dawn. He thought about his husband. He thought about his mother-in-law. He thought about the small sentences he had absorbed for years and told himself had not mattered. He understood, on those walks, that he had been wrong about the sentences. They had not mattered to Su Jun. They had mattered to him. He had been keeping them without knowing it, all of them, in order. Min-jae called him toward the end of the second week. Yoon-woo answered because Min-jae was Su Jun's closest friend, and Yoon-woo did not have the heart to refuse him. "Can I buy you a coffee? Did Su Jun send you?" No. Yoon-woo did not believe him. Min-jae heard it in the silence. "He doesn't know I'm calling. I'm calling because you're my friend too, Yoon-woo. I've known you a long time. I'd like to sit across from you and look at your face." They met at a cafe on Fremont Avenue. Min-jae was in a wool coat and a scarf that his wife had clearly bought him. He ordered a coffee. Yoon-woo ordered a tea. They sat at a small table by the window, and for the first few minutes, neither of them said anything. Min-jae was the one who broke it. "I'm a beta, Yoon-woo. I know you're a beta. I've been a beta married to a beta a long time. You've never asked me about it. I didn't think I needed to ask. I know. That's what I want to talk to you about." Yoon-woo looked up from his tea. "I'm not going to tell you what to do," Min-jae said. "I'm going to tell you what I did, a long time ago, because I think you're going through something I went through, and I think you have no one to talk to about it. Okay? When I married Chae-young, I spent the early years of our marriage waiting for her to realize she'd made a mistake. She had chosen me. She had chosen me over 2 alphas who were better on paper than I was. I spent years waiting for her to look at me one morning and understand she'd settled." Yoon-woo did not answer. He looked at his tea. "The reason I was waiting," Min-jae said, "was because I'd already decided, before she ever made her choice, that I was a worse option than the other 2. I'd done the math for her. Then I spent years waiting for her to catch up to the math I'd done, without asking her to check it. What happened? She caught me doing it. And she told me that if I ever decided for her again, she'd leave me. Not because I wasn't good enough, because I decided to believe I wasn't good enough without consulting her. She said the most disrespectful thing I could do to her was pretend to know what she wanted better than she did. Yoon-woo's hands had turned cold around the tea. She was right, Min-jae. I know she was right. I've been doing this a long time. I know. I didn't know I was doing it. I thought I was being generous. The most dangerous kind of deciding is the kind that looks like generosity. It's harder to see when you're doing it. It's harder to stop when someone points it out. But Yoon-woo, you have a husband who's been watching you decide things for him for a very long time. He is, right now, in your apartment, alone, trying not to decide anything for you in return, because he's afraid that if he asks you to come home, you'll come home for him instead of for you, and he doesn't want that. He's never wanted that. Yoon-woo did not speak for a while. Min-jae let the silence be what it was. He drank his coffee. He looked out the window at the rain. He's not well, Min-jae said, finally. I'm not saying this to push you. I'm saying it because it's true. He hasn't been sleeping. He hasn't gone into the office. He's sitting at your kitchen island drinking coffee and staring at the wall. Su Jun doesn't do that. I've never seen him do that. Min-jae, I'm not asking you to come home. I'm asking you to come home when you know what you want, and not before. But I'm also asking you to understand what's happening to him while you're away. His suffering is his own choice. He has chosen not to chase you. He has chosen it because he respects you. But he's bleeding quietly on your kitchen floor, Yoon-woo, and he's going to keep bleeding until you decide whether you want him to stop. Yoon-woo put his face in his hands. Min-jae did not say anything else. He finished his coffee. He paid for both drinks on his way out, over Yoon-woo's protest. At the door, he turned back. The thing you need to figure out is not whether he loves you. I've watched him love you since we were all young. I've never seen an alpha love a beta like that. And I say that as a beta married to a beta, so you know what I mean by the comparison. What do I need to figure out? Whether you can let him love you. That's what's been broken, Yoon-woo. It was broken before my boss's mother ever said a word about it. It's been broken since you were 17 years old and decided you were going to be grateful every day for a thing you should have been allowed to just have. He left. Yoon-woo sat at the cafe table for a long time after he was gone. He ran into Myung-suk a few days later at the Pike Place Market. He had walked there on a Saturday morning because he had not been sleeping well, and the hotel room was too small for his thinking. He was at the little coffee stand near the flower sellers, paying for a drip coffee. And when he turned around with the cup in his hand, she was standing a few feet from him. She was in a gray coat. She had a shopping bag from a butcher. Her hair was down, which Yoon-woo had not seen in a long time, and she looked, for a second, like a woman rather than a matriarch, and then the second ended. Yoon-woo. Mrs. G. She did not look surprised. Seattle was a small city, and Pike Place on a Saturday morning was a small part of it, but Yoon-woo could tell she was not surprised. She had, perhaps, been hoping. Do you have a moment? I have a coffee. There's a table by the window. He did not want to sit. He did not know how to decline. He followed her to a small table by the window of the flower market where nobody was sitting, and he set his coffee down, and he did not sit. She sat. She looked at him. How are you? I'm well. Su Jun is worried. He's in contact with me. Su Jun doesn't tell me anything. She smiled her kind smile. I heard about the hotel from Min-jae, who, I should tell you, didn't want to tell me, and only did because I asked him a direct question. Min-jae is loyal. Min-jae is loyal to my son. That's a different thing. Yoon-woo did not answer. Myung-suk looked at him. She had looked at him this way 1,000 times. The soft, assessing look that suggested she was several sentences ahead of him and was waiting, patiently, for him to catch up. Yoon-woo had always looked at his own hands when she did this. Today he looked back. Her face changed, slightly. She had not expected that. You walked out of the gala. I did. You embarrassed him. I sent him a text. Quite a while after. Yes. Yoon-woo, I have tried to be patient with you. Have you? The word came out of him before he had decided to say it. Flat. The voice he used for ledger work. My Young-suk's mouth opened, just slightly, and then closed. I beg your pardon, I said. Have you been patient with me? Yoon-woo. He looked down at his coffee. His hands were not shaking. He had been afraid they would be. Every time. For years. Yoon-woo. The aunt at the cousin's wedding. The suppressants at Christmas. The toast you gave at our wedding about devotion. I remember them all. Sogul. I don't know what you... I know you don't. That's the part that's hardest. He stopped. He had not meant to say that. It had come out on its own. He looked up at her. You don't hear what you're saying. I think you're being kind. I've been hearing it since I was a boy, and it has never sounded kind to me. Yoon-woo, I know how you want this to end. You've wanted it to end this way for a long time. You wanted me to do the leaving, so you wouldn't have to ask. Minus. My Vin. She did not answer. I almost did it. I walked out of that gala and I went home and I spent the days after agreeing with you. I've been sitting in a hotel in Fremont agreeing with you. I want you to know that you almost got what you wanted. Yoon-woo, please. I'm not going to. Your son chose me. He's kept choosing me. I don't know why you've treated that choice like a problem. I'm not going to ask you. I'm going home. He picked up his coffee. You're not going to speak to me like that again. Not at Christmas. Not anywhere. I won't come to your house. I won't eat at your table. You and I are done with the kind of conversation we've been having. Yoon-woo. I have to go. Yoon-woo, please. He stopped at the edge of the table. What? What? She looked at him. Her face was one he did not know how to read. He chose well. He did not know what to do with that. He nodded once, and he walked out of the flower market into the rain, and he did not look back. He went to his parents' house that afternoon. He had not told them about the separation. He had not told them anything. His mother opened the door and looked at his face and did not ask any questions. She just held the door open and said, "Come in. I made soup." He ate the soup at the small kitchen table. His father came in from the garden in muddy knees and sat across from him without saying anything. The three of them ate together for a while. It was the soup his mother had made him the night he presented Beta. He had not thought about that in a long time. His father was the one who asked, eventually, "Are you eating?" "Yes, Dad." "Are you sleeping?" "Not really." "Where are you sleeping?" "A hotel in Fremont." His father nodded. He did not comment. He went back to his soup. His mother said, "Is Su Jun eating?" Min-jae says no. "Then you should go home." "Mom, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what's true. I've watched that boy love you since you were boys. I've never worried about you when you were with him. I've only ever worried about you when you were somewhere else, trying to decide whether you were enough. You were enough when you were a teenager. You were enough when you were a child. You were enough when you were born. I don't know how to tell you that in a way you'll believe, because you've been not believing it since you were very small, and I haven't been able to fix it. Your father hasn't been able to fix it. The boy you married hasn't been able to fix it. Nobody can fix it for you. But I'm going to tell you one thing I've never told you before." Yoon-woo waited. "When you were a little boy, you came home from a birthday party, and you asked me why the other kids hadn't wanted you to sit with them. You'd sat by yourself for the whole party. I asked you if you'd ask them if you could sit with them. You said no. You said you didn't want them to have to say no. You were a little boy. Yoon-woo. You were already doing their work for them. You've been doing other people's work for them your whole life. You've been deciding, on their behalf, that they'd rather not have you around, before they've had the chance to answer for themselves. I've watched you do it. I've tried to stop you from doing it. I wasn't able to." His mother's hands were on the table. His father was looking at the table. Yoon-woo could not see clearly. Su Jun didn't marry you because he needed a favor. He married you because he wanted you. You've spent all these years not letting him have you. You've been sparing him from you. He doesn't need to be spared from you. He needs you. Go home, Yoon-woo. Tell him you're going to stop sparing him. Then don't ever spare him again, for the rest of your lives. She stood up. She took his empty bowl. She put it in the sink. His father, who had not said much through any of this, reached across the table and put his hand on top of Yoon-woo's. Son. Yeah. You're enough. Yoon-woo cried at the kitchen table of the house he had grown up in for the first time since he was a child. His father kept his hand where it was. His mother did the dishes without turning around. When he was done, she brought him a clean dish towel to dry his face, and then she packed the rest of the soup in a container and told him to bring it home to Su Jun. He took the bus back across the bridge. He got off at Broadway and walked to his building. It had been raining for most of the days he had been gone. He took the elevator up. He stood outside the door of his own apartment for a long minute. He had not brought his keys. He had left them in a drawer at the hotel, because he had wanted to be sure that when he came back, he would come back as a person who had to knock. He knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Su Jun was in a t-shirt and the dark gray pajama pants Yoon-woo had bought him a while back for a birthday he could no longer pin to a year. His hair was a mess. His eyes looked bruised, the color of skin under skin, hollowed out from nights of not sleeping. He was holding the door open with one hand, and his other hand was at his side, and he was looking at Yoon-woo, and he was not saying anything. My mother made soup. Okay. For us. Okay. Can I come in? Su Jun stepped aside. Yoon-woo walked in. He set the container on the console table by the door. He took off his coat. He stood in the entryway of his own apartment and he looked at his husband, and his husband looked at him. And for a long moment, neither of them moved. Yoon-woo, I want to say some things. Some of them are things I haven't said out loud before. I need you to let me finish before you answer. Writer. Okay. I've been sparing you. I didn't know I was doing it. I thought I was being kind. I wasn't being kind. I was deciding for you that you'd be better off without the full weight of me, and I was handing you a lighter version. I did it when we were dating. I did it when we got married. I did it at every Christmas dinner. I did it after the gala. I'm sorry. Yoon-woo. Wait. I'm not finished. Okay. The reason I did it is that I haven't believed, ever, that I was enough. Your mother didn't put that in me. She found it and used it. It was there when I was a little boy. My own mother told me that today. I've been carrying this my whole life. You didn't cause it. You can't fix it. I've been letting it run our marriage from the inside, and I've been lying to you about it. Every time you asked me if I was okay, I said yes, and I wasn't okay. And I thought I was protecting you from the truth. What I was doing was refusing to let you be my husband. Su Jun had not moved. His hand was still at his side. His eyes had not left Yoon-woo's face. I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't know how to stop doing it all the way. I've been doing it so long I don't know who I am without it. But I'm going to start. I'm going to tell you things when you ask me how I am. I'm going to let you see what I'm carrying. You don't need a lighter version. You married the full weight. I'm sorry it took me this long. Yoon-woo. One more thing. Okay. I went to see your mother today, at Pike Place. I said some things to her. I want you to hear them from me. What did you say? I told her I wasn't leaving you. I told her she wasn't going to speak to me like she's been speaking to me. I told her she'd almost gotten what she wanted, and that she wasn't going to get it. I was calm. I didn't raise my voice. I think I may have hurt her. I'm not sorry I did. Su Jun made a small sound. It was not a word. Yoon-woo did not look up. He kept going. I'm telling you this because I need you to know I didn't come home because I wasn't strong enough to stay away. I came home because I decided to. I did the math. Su Jun. I always do the math. The math is that I want to be your husband. Not a grateful version. Not a sparing version. Your husband. The one you chose. Yoon-woo. That's everything. You can answer now. Su Jun did not answer with words. He crossed the entryway in 2 steps. He took Yunwoo's face in both of his hands. His palms were warm. His thumbs were at Yunwoo's temples. His scent, which had turned sharp and thin while Yunwoo was gone, opened. Black pepper and wet stone and the burnt honey underneath. The warmth Yunwoo had been missing without letting himself admit he was missing it. Su Jun put his forehead against Yunwoo's. His breath was unsteady. "I've been asking you for a long time. I know. I've been asking if my mother was hurting you. I've been asking if you were okay. I've been asking if you wanted to stop coming to family events. You've been answering a different question. You've been answering the question of whether you could survive it. I know. You've been carrying this alone. Yes. I was right there. I know." Su Jun pulled back just enough to look at him. "I stopped saying their names because you heard me every time I said them. And you looked like I'd hit you. I didn't want to keep hitting you. That's the only reason I stopped. It wasn't a decision I made once. It was 100 small decisions I made at dinners and in bed and on Sunday mornings, every time I felt the names coming up. And I swallowed them because I could see what they cost you." "Su Jun, let me finish. I wanted those children. I wanted the house and the garden and the boy being an older brother to the girl. I've wanted it since we were young. I thought I'd grieved it. I thought I'd done the work quietly and put it away and been finished with it. The morning after the gala, you stood at this island and you said their names without saying them. And I understood that I hadn't finished anything. I'd buried it. That's a different thing. I didn't know how much of it was still in me until you said it to me." Yunwoo's chest had turned tight. He could not speak. "I've been grieving it properly since you left. For the first time, I've been sitting at this island and letting it hurt. And I want you to know that the only thing that made it stop hurting was saying it to you just now. I didn't need you to take it away. I needed you to know it was there. I didn't know that until tonight." Su Jun's thumb moved against Yunwoo's temple. His voice went lower. "Here's something I should have said a long time ago. I don't talk about what hurts me. I know. My mother raised me in a quiet house. I learned that a man carries his things. I've been carrying mine my whole life. I thought I was being steady for you. I wasn't being steady for you, Yunwoo. I was being silent at you. You were standing next to a husband who never admitted anything ever cost him. And I've been wondering, these days you were gone, how a person in that marriage would ever have permission to say anything cost them either. I did that to you. My mother handed you the box. I built the room where you couldn't open it. So Jun, I'm not saying it to take blame off her. She did what she did. I'm saying it because it's the part that's mine. I won't keep doing it. When my mother says something and it lands, I'm going to tell you. When my aunt asks me when we're going to have good news, I'm going to tell you how it felt. You're not going to be the only one in this marriage with things that hurt. You've been the only one for too long, and I made you that. I chose you when I was 17. I choose you now. I'll keep choosing you. My mother doesn't understand it, and she's not going to, and I don't care. If you want me to never see her again, I'll never see her again. If you want me to see her twice a year on my terms, I'll see her twice a year on my terms. You tell me what you need. You don't decide alone. Ever again. And I won't decide alone, either. Okay. Don't spare me. I won't. Promise me. I promise. Su Jun kissed him. It was not a gentle kiss. Su Jun had spent days sitting on a hallway floor, and the kiss had all of that inside it. Yunwoo kissed him back with everything he had been holding back, his body finally allowed to lean forward without catching itself at the last second. When they separated, Su Jun's hands were still on his face. Come to bed. Not to sleep. Just to lie down. I want to hold you for a few hours. Okay. Yunwoo let his husband take him by the hand. They walked down the hallway. Su Jun turned off the lights as they went. In the bedroom, Yunwoo took off his coat and his shoes and got into the bed in his clothes, because he could not be bothered to undress, and Su Jun got in beside him and wrapped his arms around him and held him as he had held him at 17 and at 22 and at every point in between. Yunwoo slept. For the first time since he could remember, he slept through the night. Years later, It was a Saturday in June. Yoon-woo was in the kitchen of the apartment, which had not changed except for a new painting in the living room that his mother had given them for an anniversary, and a second chair at the reading nook because Su Jun had finally given in and started reading in the same room as him instead of retreating to the study. He was making pancakes. Su Jun was still in bed. Yoo-hoo-woo had left him there because Su Jun was a couple of days into a rut, and the pre-rut fatigue had hit him hard the night before. They had decided, together, a while ago, that Yoon-woo would stay through Su Jun's ruts. It had not been an easy decision. For most of their marriage, Su Jun had gone to the Ji family's cycle management apartment in Belltown during his ruts, and Yoon-woo had gone to his parents' house. Su Jun had come home a few days later, showered and exhausted, and Yoon-woo had not asked him about it and Su Jun had not volunteered. The pattern had been laid down early, when they were both young and embarrassed and did not know how to talk about it, and it had calcified. A while after the separation, Yoon-woo had said to him, over dinner, "I want to stay next time." Su Jun had looked up from his plate. "Stay. Here. With you. Through the rut. I'm tired of going to my parents' house every few months and pretending it's normal." "Yoon-woo, I can't ease it. I know I can't. I'm not asking to. I'm asking to be next to you while you have it. To bring you water. To be here when you wake up. I've been leaving you alone for it since we were 18, and I'm done." Su Jun had set his fork down. He had looked at Yoon-woo without speaking for a while. "It'll be hard for me. I know. I won't be easy to be around. I know. You'll hear things you haven't heard before. I'm not the same during it. I've thought about that. And you still want to?" "Yes. I don't want to spare you, Su Jun. I don't spare you anymore. I'm not going to start again." They had done the first one not long after. Su Jun feverish in their bed, burning through 2 sets of sheets, restless through the first night. The restlessness frightened Yoon-woo more than he had expected. Yoon-woo had stayed. He had brought water. He had put a cold cloth on the back of Su Jun's neck when the fever peaked, and had not taken it personally when Su Jun, at the worst hour of the second day, had been sharp with him in a voice he had never used before. On the third afternoon, when the fever broke, Su Jun had turned toward him in the sheets and put his forehead against Yoon-woo's collarbone and cried, briefly, without explaining, and Yoon-woo had put his hand in his husband's hair and held it there until the crying stopped. Neither of them had ever said anything about it afterward. They had not needed to. That had been the conversation. They had done several since. Each one had been easier than the last. The cousin's baby had started kindergarten that fall. Her name was Ha-na. She liked Su Jun because Su Jun, when he sat with her on the floor, did not ask her questions or try to entertain her. He just handed her a crayon and sat next to her while she drew. Yoon-woo had watched them once from the kitchen and had waited for the old ache to come. It had not come. He had told Su Jun that later, walking back to the car. Su Jun had taken his hand and squeezed it once and not said anything. And that had been the whole conversation they ever needed to have about it. Yoon-woo flipped a pancake. He had been setting 2 places at the kitchen island again for a long time now. Su Jun's place had a mug that said, in Yoon-woo's handwriting, "Yours, permanently." Su Jun used it every morning. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Dad has new tomatoes. Come for dinner on Sunday." He wrote back. "Will do. Su Jun's rut should be over by Sunday. 3 dots. Tell him your father misses him." Yoon-woo smiled. He put the pancakes on a plate and set them on the warming shelf. He had not seen Myung-suk in a while. She had never apologized. She probably never would. A few months after the separation, she had sent him a card. Not a birthday card, just a card. The card said, "You were right. I had been doing what you said I was doing. I'm not sure I know how to do something else, but I'm going to try. M." She had not signed her full name. She had tried. She still tried. He had seen her at a handful of family events since, and each time she had spoken to him in a slightly different register. It was not a relationship. It was not even close. But it was the absence of the thing she had been doing before, and Yoon Woo had come to understand that for some people, the absence of the bad thing was the closest they could come to love. He had told Su Jun, once, that he was at peace with it. I have one mother. I don't need two. I have your mother in a room sometimes, and I don't need her to be more than that. You can have whatever relationship with her you want. I'm not going to be in the middle of it, but I won't go to her house for dinner. Ever. Okay. The bedroom door opened. Yoon Woo heard the slow, heavy footfall of an alpha, a couple of days into a rut. Su Jun came down the hallway in pajama pants, hair wild. He leaned against the kitchen doorway. His eyes found Yoon Woo, and something in his face surfaced. Slow, coming back from a long way under. I smell pancakes. You do. You're supposed to bring them to me. I am. I'm still making them. You were supposed to stay in bed. I know. Why are you out of bed? I wanted to see you. Su Jun did not move. He stood in the doorway and looked at his husband at the stove, the morning light coming in through the window, and his face had the expression he had worn since the morning after Yoon Woo came home from Fremont. The one Yoon Woo had named, privately, as at last. You stayed. I'm going to keep staying. I've told you. I know. I just like to hear it. Go back to bed. I'm bringing you pancakes. And then I'm coming in with you, and you're going to let me put a cold cloth on your neck whether you want one or not. And then we're going to sleep until your fever breaks. And then we're going to my parents' house on Sunday, because my dad has new tomatoes. Okay. Su Jun smiled. It was the small smile he had smiled when they were 17, the one Yoon Woo had seen across a chemistry classroom when Su Jun turned around in his seat for the first time and really looked. He turned from the doorway and went back down the hallway. Yoon Woo heard him get into bed. He stood at the stove with the spatula in his hand and looked out the window at the early June sky, which was, somehow, full of light. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell me your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear from you.